Hold up.
So I'm Janae. This is Greg, and this is Greg, and we're here for our panel. Let's talk writing comics. We did this last year, and so we're coming back this year with some similar questions, but some different because we want to give you guys some different information from last year. Um, so first, I just want to give a short introduction for each of us, and we'll introduce ourselves. Again, my name is Janae. Um, I'm a I guess I call myself a cosplayer in training because I've never like officially done a lot of cosplay, but I tend to do it on occasion. And I've been doing the conventions for a minute.
Every day for every convention.
Yes, okay. And so I tend to come to conventions at first to support people, and then I came to like really get into deeper cosplay. And so I'll let them introduce themselves.
My name is Greg Anderson Elysee. I am a writer of the comic series It's Not the Weird Spider. I also write a whole bunch of other comics, one for Scholastic that came out last year, 2 years ago.
Award-winning.
That. A lot of my writing, I like to focus on black shit. Just black culture, black mythology, essence of just trying to showcase us as like the main characters, and that we can literally pull so many different stories from various backgrounds that we have, and they don't need to be this special exotic thing that you have to be sort of worried and scared of. That we can make so many different fantastical adventures and just have a lot of fun with it. And yeah, that's a lot of my stuff tend to be about. Thank you guys for stopping by.
Thank you. My name is Greg Burnham. I'm Big Greg. That's Little Greg. Are you still cool with Little
I'm
Greg?
Big Greg right here.
So I'm also a writer. I write on Tuskegee Airs. The Search for Sonica is a series that I do. Little Rock Files is like a newer one. I have a few different indie properties, and then I've done some stuff with DC Comics. I was a member of the Milestone Initiative. I got to write a Superman story for their Halloween anthology last year.
One of the few black people to write Superman. Just so you guys know. Just so you know.
Thank you. Yeah. And then most recently for DC, I wrote a Mr. Terrific story for DC Power 2024. And I like doing those. Don't get me wrong. I think me and Greg are kind of in the same boat. We really love the freedom to be able to tell the stories, like our stories, the way that we want. So I'll always continue to like push and develop my own stories as well.
So I have a question. By the way, if you have questions, please write them down. We will take them all towards the end of the panel. But I have a question for you two. Why indie publish? Why not try to publish with some of the mainstream comic companies?
I think like one of the things that I'm finding right now. So I'm doing a book, and I love Fabrice Sapolsky with Fair Square, and we have this book, Little Rock Files, and it's doing pretty well, and definitely getting like really good feedback from readers and everything. And I do a lot of conventions. I sell a lot of books, and I'm like, hey man, I'm gonna be needing some more books after DreamCon. He's like, yeah, we're not gonna print any more of those until we get we're gonna do the second issue. I'm like, oh, that stings, because I'm used to being able to like print. Like, how many times have you printed issue 1 of It's Not a, right? And people keep buying it, right? So it's like, I'm like, oh, that's something I gotta take off the table. I gotta find something else because they control everything about the project. And like I said, I love them. We're talking about doing another book together right now. So it's nothing against them. It's just that like being able to have the freedom and have the control with your property to do what you want with it. Like if I have a school that says, hey, we need 200 copies of Tuskegee Airs next week. Oh, I got you. Send me the money. I got you, because I control that myself. So control is a big part of it. Also, the other part, and then I'll let Greg talk, but the business side of it, like So Tuskegee Years, like when we came out with that, we had everybody and their mama, besides the big two, came at us trying to publish it. Once you bring them into the fold, now if you get like an animation deal or a movie deal or anything like that, those publishers, like some publishers, they want a percentage of rights. Some of them want all the rights. Just depends. So it's like you're adding another, like a middle person who has veto power to your project. And now, instead of it just being me you're negotiating with, or me and Marcus you're negotiating with, you're negotiating with a company as well. So really holding on to your control and being able to navigate through these waters. When I sell, like I do an indie book, if I sell 10,000 copies of that, we're like dancing like Usher in the street. You know what I mean? But if you do a book with DC or somebody like that, and then you sell 10,000 copies, they looking like, man, we need to get them numbers up. So, because 10,000 for us, all the money comes to us. We're good.
Just to clarify, when you asked indie, first grade is also indie.
Indie, yeah.
But I think the question is like self-publishing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with self-publishing, as Greg already sort of said, there's control. You control everything. You own everything. And as to why I specifically wanted to do that, I think I just wanted to use this as a way to learn the business myself. Because once you own everything, now you're the person who's distributing. You're the one who's practically in control of the printing. You're in control of every single thing. And I wanted to learn from my mistakes in a way, and I made a shit ton of mistakes. But at the same time, I've also learned like, oh, so this actually really isn't that difficult. Even though you have a whole bunch of people saying, so if you sign with us, we can do this, that, and the third. And you think, oh shoot, that does sound hard. But then when you actually realize what it actually is, you're like, I can do this shit myself, So a lot of it is just like using this as a learning curve. It was my first book. As I said, I made a lot of mistakes, but I learned how certain business things work. I learned things what not to do moving forward, and that has made me, I feel like, as a better writer and a better businessman in a way. And every day you're learning something. And I feel like you wouldn't learn a lot of the same stuff that you learn every day self-publishing if you try to go with another company trying to get your work. And again, I like owning my shit. I don't like I say, I don't like being told how to write. That's essentially what an editor does. They sort of try to mold you a little bit, but it's more, I'm not gonna say mold you entirely because it's still you as a writer. But there's a difference when you're working for a different company and they can say, no, we're not gonna do this. No, this is what you should do. You should try this instead. Versus, I can do whatever the heck I want. But you have that freedom, but then it also comes to a point you also have to learn to be an actual critic of your work. So there's pluses and negatives to both sides, but it really all depends on what you want as a creator. But I'd say try to be versatile and do everything.
Okay. So kind of in that similar vein, but a little different direction. Why write a comic anyway? Write a comic, why not a novel or any other form of medium?
Why are you writing comics?
I mean, and so comics are definitely cheaper than making movies or animation, stuff like that. Initially, because and I know Greg and I have talked about that. Greg was like, it's not as a comic, it's going to be a comic, that's what it is. Like, we came out, thinking, yo, man, we want this to be a movie with animation. But comics were, the lowest, hanging fruit for us. Because Marcus could draw, I can write, you know what I'm saying? So it's I think that's why I started. But then over time, I love the script writing process, I love the world building process. I love all the little bitty elements that you put into stuff that people don't even get to see, but they can kind of feel it when they read your book, So now it's every time I try to write a novel or something like that, I might be 200 pages in. I'm like, it's about to be a comic. You know, I like script. Like I like writing in script form more than I like writing in prose anymore.
So you have to explain what is the difference when you say script versus.
So we know the difference between prose and script, right? So
No.
prose, like standard paragraphs, like that would be in a novel, versus like scripting, where it's not. It's totally different. It's page one, panel one,
You're writing a direction
description. For your artist. Like I love that whole process. I love to be able to transfer my ideas to an artist and then see it come to life. So I think that's where I am now. Is like I want to do everything in comics, and then if somebody wanted to like turn it into a movie or something, go ahead, just give me my money and let me get out of here. So I don't know. I think you fall in love with it, right? And then it's hard to fall out of love.
I found a comic shop in the second grade, walking to school, and I was like, ooh, what is this? And picked up my first comic. That created a whole freaking addiction until like middle school, high school. I bought this book by Peter David, who's a big time comic writer. And the book was about writing comic books. And something just told me, just buy it off rip, why not? I love this guy. And I remember reading through the whole thing really fast. And at the end of the book, I was like, I want to write comics for the rest of my life. That was it for me. And I spent so much money on comics as a kid. Like, that was literally everything that I bought. And it just makes sense to me. I was always a visual person. I was an artist in high school. I studied art. But writing was always the thing that, like, I've been doing since literally kindergarten. And it just had, like, both mediums. It had the art that I loved. It had writing that I loved. And it just, to me, it just made sense for me to become a comic book writer. And as opposed to, like, prose, I feel like I'm not a big fan of my prose, even though I've always got straight A's whenever I had to write a writing assignment. And I feel like my peers having to review my work, my teachers, my professors, they're all like, oh my God, it's amazing. I'm like, no. I'm like my biggest critic when it comes to my prose. Especially because when you grow up reading people like, since I was a kid, like James Baldwin and Toni Morrison, I'm like, I cannot match these motherfuckers. And I don't beat myself up about it, but at the same time, I was just like, I feel like my heart is in comic books. Every now and then, I'll mess around and do like a prose thing, but then I'm like, I'll leave that to James and Tony and them like that. But yeah, that's comics to me is just I feel like it's a calling, and I feel like everyone has their own calling. Mine is comic books.
All right, so I'm ready to write. Well, I'm interested in writing a comic, right? What's the first step, or what was your first step? I guess I don't know if it's the same for everyone. So
we actually have the book. I don't think you get to see it. We got the book on the table that me and Marcus created like in 2001. I think it was the first. Yeah, we created, and we were, we just sat down, and I like just started writing, and he was drawing what I was writing, and we didn't know what we were doing. It didn't turn out too terrible though. Actually, it was hot at the time. But yeah, so I always tell people, man, do it. There are people, and I know there are a lot of people that talk about it, and they'll say this is what they're gonna do, and they'll plan it out, and they'll world build, and they'll do all of that, and they'll never make a damn comic. And then you have some people, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know that they don't know what they're doing, and they just get to going. I just had a little consultation with a young lady. She just graduated high school. She's in Girl Scouts, and she's for whatever super badge she's doing, her project is to create a comic. So she's writing it, she's illustrating, she's doing the graphics, she's doing everything. And I was just, the whole time I'm talking to her, I'm just like smiling, because I'm just like, you got what a lot of people don't have. I'm just gonna go in here and do the damn book, So before we get into like steps, you know, and like those beginning steps, like you've got to be one of those people that's just gonna crank that shit out. And you know, there's so many different ways to do it. Like we've talked last time we did this at BlerDCon, like me and him, our processes are way different. You know, he's one of my favorite writers to read. You know, but it's like, so it's sometimes it's not as much as about how you get there as that you got there. So we could go into the like what we talked about. I guess since you guys are new, most of y'all.
Well, has anyone here ever written a comic before?
I'm saying new to the panel.
Oh.
So like my process it's boring now, like especially when you hear him say his. Mine is like, I come up with my story, figure out my elements, I outline, the beginning, like it's a real formal thing. You get to a page breakdown, page panel breakdown, but at the end it's like you just got to figure out how to do it. Because in that time, you'll figure out what works for you, what doesn't, and you'll learn how to be more efficient.
All right, so my answer to this question, I feel like one of the biggest hindrance that people do to themselves is they constantly say, I have this idea. And it's like, or they'll come up to me, oh, you write comic books? I have this great idea. All right, so what are you going to do with it? Oh, it's in my head. Okay, so why should I care, in my opinion? Because I feel like a lot of people say, I have an idea. What are you going to do with that idea? They're going to let it die and fester because it's all in their heads. But you want to create something. You want to create a comic book. You want to make a movie. You want to make some songs. Whatever that venture is, you have to start putting that shit down on paper or start creating it. And my first step that I always tell people, put that fucking shit down. Like, put it down on paper. You have your phone. Put it down in your notes. Open up a Google Docs. Whatever it is, just literally put that idea down. Once you get that practice going where you're constantly writing and jotting things down, think even if it's literally 5 minutes a day. Actually, you could put a timer, 5 minutes or even 20 minutes. Do that. By the end of the week, you got a good chunk of shit written down. Stuff that you probably wouldn't have gotten before. Sometimes your ideas, they're just ideas until you actually start writing, and all of a sudden the juices in your head start actually moving about, and you start thinking about all these different plots and characters that you didn't have before, and you cannot do that unless you actually start writing down. So that should always be the beginning process. Stop saying I have an idea. Actually grab a pen and paper, pencil, turn on your Mac, whatever it is, any type of writing thing, even if a recorder, to record what your idea is. Just get it out of your head. A lot of people, we tend to forget. We'll forget about these ideas. Or you wake up in the morning, you had this dope-ass dream, and you're like, this would make a great story. And then all of a sudden, damn, what the hell was that dream? You just knew that dream was dope. So put everything down. I guess in terms of my process, so I like to tell people, because people get stuck. Sometimes they have a great idea, they have great stories in mind or great characters, but they don't know where to start. Like, what is the beginning of my story? And so for me, I like to tell people, I understand you're stuck in the beginning. You feel like you don't want to get to the next chapter or chapter 2 unless you have the origin down, until you have this and this down. But what is that scene in your head that excites you? Like, when you think about your story, what is that exact moment that you're just like, this is the vision, this is the fight scene that's in my head? How about you write that scene down, get it down on paper, and then from there you start to figure out, okay, what happened right before this? What happens after this? Maybe it's only the ending that's in your head. Maybe the beginning and the end. Write them down, and then you'll start to figure out what happens in between. Start actually piecing it together as a puzzle. From there, like, if you're stuck, just have fun with it. Like, what is the scene that excites you, that makes you just hype? Put that down, start to figure out what the spine is, what the outline is, who the characters are, and little by little, you start to realize you can literally move the pieces together to formulate the story. You can figure out the plot, the pacing, and so on and so forth. And then from there, just start formatting it together. I know that I've had people who be like, I cannot write the way you write. But then I have people who, like, they get stuck all the time. And then until I tell them, the first scene you think about of your story, what is it? Not the beginning of the story. What is the first moment that you think about? Is it a piece of dialogue? Is it a character sitting down talking to their best friend about a situation? So write that down. And then from there, you'll start to realize what your story is, what your theme is, whatever it is that you need, but you just need to start putting it down.
And I'm sorry, I just wanted to feedback because this is valuable information. I've heard Greg say it before. Like sometimes if you only have 10 minutes, 20 minutes, just take 20 minutes and work on, building, whether you're writing just all out or if you're, outlining. So we all went to school, right? And we had to take English class and like we figured out ways to muscle through, like reports that you have to get done or whatever. So you kind of know, like my brain has always been like outline, because I want to know like my points. It's just kind of like if I'm taking a trip to New Orleans right now, if I'm driving, I'm gonna look at the map before I start driving. I'm not just gonna jump in my wow. I'm old. We used to use maps, guys.
Oh,
wow. We used to use actual maps to, before you could GPS and shit. Like you had to like know where you were going. When I get to Richmond, 95, I need to get on 85. So we learned that kind of stuff. So that's kind of how I do, like with my stories. It's like I got bullet points that are going to get me from A to B to C all the way down. Now, I try not to be super rigid because when you're rigid, you can kind of get stuck on a thought like this has to happen, and that might not be what's best for your story. So I stay kind of loose with it, but that part is like something that we have to do in life in other ways, right? Like figure out what method works best for me to get this particular task done. So it's kind of like you're going through a period of discovery. Like when I went to the DC, the milestone thing, and they're like, nah, you gotta have this in your script. And I'm sitting there like, I do what I want. I got that. I already doing stuff, But then I'm also inquisitive, so I'm asking editors. And it's why it's really good if you're able to talk to some editors that are kind of open and actually care about like developing. Because you can ask them, why do you have to have this? Why are you saying this has to be here? And they might give you a good answer that opens up another portal in your head. So it's all discovery while you're going through. But, so you just got to be in tune. And you got to be critical of yourself. Because, like, I don't let people read stuff until I feel pretty confident. All the crap, it never gets, man.
Y'all pulling up or not?
I'll be opening and closing it.
I think you're confused because there's no sign outside. I wanted to come here, walk into the game station. Yeah.
Oh, well, it does.
It does.
They see that door open, they hear people talking, they're confused.
It's cool though. But yeah, so.
I'll stand out there.
It's cool, you good.
Unless you don't want to be in here. I'm gonna go fart. But no, so yeah, it's like it's discovery, man. You're learning and building and figuring out what works for you the whole time you're going.
All right, so you said that and you mentioned this too. You mentioned theme. Like, how do I decide on a theme? Is that something that I have to intentionally choose? And then with that idea of a theme, do I have to have a message to my story or can it just be a story?
Your story can be what you want it to be. Like, it's 2024. We don't have to be confined to, the cookie cutter, like you gotta have this, you gotta have that. Now, if people don't like your story, that's on you. But you don't have to be like super dug into to all of that. Like your themes are cool because it kind of helps you to guide, like, so I can understand. Like I take they're in the city, where they're breaking and all that, and it's not a got friends and.
Oh,
what's the name?
Showtime?
Showtime, yeah. Okay. But like there's a really solid theme in there. So I can tell a parent like, man, this is a good book for a youngin to read. And even, older people as well. But like so it's good to have themes, but sometimes the theme comes to you and sometimes the theme is the beginning of the idea, right? So you just stay fluid.
Yeah, I think it depends on the story in terms of how you're writing it, because I feel like every English class is always about what is the theme, what is the message. I feel like they go hand in hand, message and theme. What is the message that you as a writer are trying to convey? Sometimes we don't know yet. We just know we have a cool idea that we just want to do. And then as you're writing it, you start to realize a theme that keeps popping up between, say, the main character or certain characters. Maybe they all have a similar goal, or there's a similar type of topic that keeps showing up. And for all you know, you could decide right then and there, maybe my story is actually about this. And then once you figure out what that theme and that message is, you can start actually formulating and going back to like maybe the beginning of how, now that I know what the story is about, how can I set things up in the beginning that will actually make this theme even stronger? Like it seems like it's intentional. Because I feel like a lot of people stole your answers.
I said sorry.
Okay, cool.
You didn't hear it.
Nah, like I feel like a lot of people get stuck of why am I telling this story way too early on as opposed to just writing your story, and just let it naturally come to you. And sometimes you might need to finish the whole story, and then that's when you reread it and you're like, oh, okay. Or sometimes you might give it to somebody else, and they might pick up something that you actually didn't really intentionally mean, and all of a sudden you start to realize subconsciously you actually did put that down. So now, how can you bring that into the forefront to make your story even stronger than it actually is? So the story process from beginning to end, it never really ends. You keep discovering things about your own story and yourself as a writer, and I think that surprise is what can also help strengthen what that theme is and help you figure out what that theme is.
And then also, like, themes can be, so it also kind of depends on what kind of comic you're writing, right? If you're doing like a one shot, you kind of want like a closed in, and you want to make sure that the theme comes across. But if
What is a one shot?
a one shot, like one book that's got, but it's like
One
a
and done story.
beginning, end, middle, all of that stuff.
So no
Versus
particular-
like
no
a-
sequel or prequel or
Yeah,
anything like
I mean, it could be a sequel, but it's like you're trying to get a complete story out in one book. So that's different than if you're doing like a serial, like maybe I have 8 issues. So the theme might like be spread all the way across, and you might not really understand the full theme of the story until you finish. So that's another thing that really determines how you're going to execute.
Since you,
Oh, she can-
I didn't know if we were taking questions.
so at the end, but please remember them. But since you brought up theme, one thing I've noticed with both of you is that you're really good at including intense themes into your stories. So like you dealt with the Tulsa massacre, and then of course you dealt with police brutality with like young Black teenagers in New York. So like, how do you do that in a way that is not traumatizing, essentially? Because like these are readable stories where it's like I wasn't upset, because you watch Roots and you be mad, like. But it's like I could read them and it's like, okay, it's an informative story and it's an engaging story without me having that negative emotional response to where I'm in my feelings.
I think that's always like a fine line of trying to figure out in terms of, do you want to write trauma porn, or do you want to actually humanize a situation? And unfortunately, a lot of the trauma that we deal with, especially Black folks, sometimes it's not fantastical, it's our reality. And it becomes a whole thing of, do I write about it? And hopefully, not trying to glorify it, but sort of shine a light into this issue and how do we go about what's the word I'm looking for? How do we go about like solving the problem? I guess you can say, you know. And I used this example the last time we did this panel at MomoCon. Was how many people loved? I'm saying loved. I want to see. Loved and enjoyed. Was it Queen and Slim?
Mm-hmm.
Who liked it? Raise your hands. Who liked that movie? Who enjoyed it until the end? Okay. So, who has not seen it? Who plans to see it?
Who cares about spoilers?
I might spoil.
Okay,
Are y'all cool?
Yeah. I mean, it's like 2 years.
If they ain't seen it by now, if they ain't seen it by
So, okay, all right. The movie literally begins with a black man and a black woman going on a date. Weird ass fucking date. It was a really weird date. And somehow that leads to them dealing with a cop, a racist cop. They're defending themselves against the cop, and the cop dies. They kill the cop. Now they're on the run. And the thing is, you have that setup, but as you're watching the movie, there's like this celebration of blackness that makes you feel like you want them to achieve, and then they're meeting all these black people who's helping them, even like white allies who's helping them escape and stuff like that. There's even a black cop who catches them, but like sneaks them out because he knows like what they're going through is like really fucked up, and you know they're learning things about each other. They're celebrating each other.
Kind of falling in love because they also were like they didn't know each other.
They didn't know each other. Yeah.
So you know, it's like they're going through all of this and they're falling in love with each other at the same time. So it's kind of beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and the lighting is beautiful. It's dark skinned
The
people,
directing,
the music, and you're just like, it's a fucked up movie, but it's like this black feel good almost at the same time. And as you're watching the movie, you're like, there's like decisions being made that you're just like, okay, cool, maybe this, but then here's the thing, I'm watching it, and I'm watching it with my partner, and I already know, like, I know what's gonna happen. I know what's gonna happen. And like,
I'm like, this better not happen.
And I knew it was gonna happen. So then when the ending came, they reach a point where they're like literally about to finally fucking escape from everything. Yeah, that one motherfucker who betrays them for money. And of course, the cops all swarm them, and you're thinking, okay, they're on camera, maybe something. They both fucking die. They both get killed. You just watch this whole thing. And then there's a weird scene of this black kid who's getting the wrong message from them trying to escape, who goes to a black cop and shoots him. And you're like, why is this in the movie? hold that thought. But like, it becomes one of those things of just like you just brought us through a whole like thing of black celebration, of like black excellence, all this stuff, and then you end it on that note. And like in my opinion, it is unfortunately our reality. This is what happens to a lot of people. But then when you're going around with press talking about, I made this movie to celebrate blackness and black people, that's how you celebrate us? You know, it's like you could have given us that one little fantasy of like, we escaped. We actually made it out alive. You know, our life is fucked up in the end. We can't go back, but we made it out.
One time, can't we?
Yeah, like one
and
time.
And then they followed up with the, what's the show on Amazon?
Them?
Yeah, and that first season was straight trauma porn. Like, I'm like, I think there's like, because people have capitalized off of our pain for so long, like for our existence in this country, I feel like we're used to seeing, Eurocentric people do this, but it's like now we get to write it.
Yeah.
So why in God's name would I do that same thing? Why would I not care a little bit more about my people? I see somebody holding up the money sign, right? Because that's what sells, right? If you listen to hip hop, Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what sells, right? Unfortunately. So, you know, I always say it's like some of this stuff is acts of defiance. He's not, like, if y'all haven't read this brother's stuff, man, you're really missing out. Like, he doesn't, like, subscribe to, you have to use perfect English here. You have to, you know what I'm saying? He tells the story the way his characters, you know, roll. And, like, half the time I just be looking like, how in the hell did this dude come up with this? Like, why? Where's your brain? Like, what was you on? What was you on? You know what I mean? So, but it's like the care and the love for our people is going to prevent you, because getting back to that question, the care and the love for our people. So I wrote about the Black Wall Street Massacre. The whole thing that inspired me to write that story, I'm a history major. I think I know everything. And I stumbled on this YouTube documentary at like 3 o'clock in the morning. This one I still had a job. It was a work night. I had to be at work at like 6. And so I watched this like 2-hour documentary, man. I'm in there like, because they didn't focus on the, you know, what the evil that the white people did. They focused on the beauty of these black people in this community that built this community to where you had a black hospital, you got black banks, you got black everything. You know what I'm saying? All these educated people coming from everywhere, New York, Chicago, everywhere. So when I talk about this story, I'm gonna show you the amazing, you know, the brilliance of my people, instead of, you know, focusing on, you know, the harm, the evil that was done to them. So it's like, what do you care about? If you're just trying to get the money, then you might make some bullshit. But if you really care about, you know, the event, you care about the people that you're writing about, then it's gonna come out different. So in my head, I'm like, there's nothing that's like, man, I'm not gonna write trauma porn. It's just, I care about the people I'm writing. Like when Fantastic Frankie, if y'all know who she did a review of Sadaka, the book we're talking about. And that was the first thing she said is, this man wrote a story that centers around a horrible event, but instead of focusing on the trauma, he focuses on the love. You know, so it's just about what you care about. Man.
And to like quickly finish up on this with Isnana with the police brutality. So my general series is Nana. He's the son of the god of stories, Anansi the spider. And the whole series is essentially like a coming of age of him figuring out himself, living up to his father's legacy as the god of stories, while also dealing with his own sort of adventures. And in volumes 1 and 2, he's essentially working with with Anansi, stopping monsters and creatures, and that's pretty much his life. With Showtime, and it was actually inspired by former students that I had, who they were breakdancers. They would dance in the streets, they would dance on the trains, make money, and stuff like that. And I remember one day them coming to class, very upset, and I'm like, "Yo, what's going on?" And this was when Stop and Frisk was like a big thing, you know. And they were good kids. They were great kids. Never had any issues with them. All they wanted to do was dance. That was literally all they ever wanted to do. And they got stopped and frisked. They were clearly just upset about that whole situation. And for me, when I wrote Showtime, which is a later installment with Isnana, I wanted to focus again more on that coming of age aspect, where he realizes he's actually a kid. He's fighting all these fantastical creatures and monsters, getting his limbs torn off and all this other shit. But sometimes it's not all about your responsibility. Sometimes you can just remember, I'm a kid and I can just hang out. And so he meets these street dancers, these kids, and he spends the whole day with them. And unfortunately, he ends up coming across a cop who causes a whole situation. He becomes a victim of the police brutality. Given that he's the god, he's also like a demigod. He finds a way to escape it. But then he's just like, why the fuck, why did this happen to me? And that's when the kids were just like, how are you new to this, you know? And, you know, because his life is, he's the son of a god. All he does is fight these creatures and monsters. He knows these guys as the authority while they're attacking him. And then that's when they realize, they're talking to him about, dog, you do realize you're black, right? And he, given that he's actually a spider in this human body, he's just like, what are you talking about? And he starts learning about all this. So then, like, yeah, it was like a very traumatic thing that I put him through, but it was also a way of like him learning about how this world works, as well as the reader hopefully picking up on certain things, because they sort of give a slight little history of like, this is what happens to a lot of inner city kids. And of course, a lot of people might be like, oh, that's a stereotype. But my students literally dealt with this shit, you know? And so I wanted to put like a personal take on that and sort of see how does he sort of overcome that? How does he like process that? And unfortunately, it's something that sticks with him, because at the end he sees cops, even though the cops are just like chilling, and he's just like ready like to fight, and the kids are like, whoa, relax. So I also want to highlight the fact that sometimes this one situation with authority, that can shape your whole fucking mindset moving forward the rest of your life. Even if they never bother you again, but you're always going to remember that fucked up situation that you got stopped by that one particular cop. And then you have all the news of everyone dealing with one particular cop, and how that always fucks up the rest of their reality.
You kind of lead me to my next question. And to give a little bit of background, there was something that was being written, and a friend read it, and when they read it, they were like, well, why did this particular event happen to this character? And it was like, well, I mean, there was no explanation. So like when, case in point, that example there, like when things happen to your main character, right? Do you have to have a why behind it? Like, why did this particular event happen? Does it have to play a role in like the major aspect of the story? Do you have to have like a whole message tied into it, or can it just be an event that occurred?
I feel like, I think we've all read something or watched something where you're just questioning why a certain thing was made, because you'll watch the whole movie multiple times and you're just like, why was this scene in here? And you don't know. And sometimes you want to do research on like, maybe if I do research behind the scenes and you still can't figure out why that freaking scene is in there. And that takes you away from the whole story, because maybe you were enjoying everything. And then all of a sudden, this one random ass thing. And sometimes a lot of people just say, oh, I just thought it'd be cool. But it's like, okay, like why? I feel like I don't know. I do, there are times where I do like cool things. It's like watching cool things happen. But find a way to make it make sense with the story that you're trying to tell. If, like, I feel like I'm one of those people, when I'm watching a movie, do not talk to me, because there's a piece of dialogue. I feel like every piece of dialogue should be important, even if it may not be important to the general plot. Maybe it's something to showcase the character's personality, or maybe a decision that happens, and so on and so forth. And there will be times where, like, I've maybe seen a movie 2 or 3 times, and then somebody starts talking to me, and I'm just like, okay, and I've seen it already, so I'm cool. But then later on, wait, why did that happen? You were talking to me during the time that he said that. And they think like they have an attitude, but I'm like, you was talking during that. Like, now you're asking me, and now we're arguing about this. Well, we could just be watching the movie, you know?
Are you speaking to anybody in particular?
I'm just saying, you know? It drives me nuts. But I feel like everything should be intentional. Yeah, there are times where you just want to put something cool down, and that's cool. But maybe let that cool thing mean something. Maybe it means something to a particular character. Maybe it's a way to reveal something about the character, or their mindset, or the way they think, or maybe an action happens where you may be a little confused as to why, but maybe there's a setup. There's something that, you know, surrounds it. So I'd say, don't just put some random ass shit for no reason. Give it meaning. Let it have a reason why it's there.
I feel like I'm cheating because somebody asked me this yesterday. Storm. So I agree with Greg is saying. I do think like on a more grand scale. So like, does anybody watch House of the Dragon in here? Okay, 2, 3, 4 people. All right. So Because there's an example, and forgive me if I'm spoiling, but y'all should be on y'all's job. There's a scene with Corliss and the dude that pulls him from the sea, and I think they show him, it's the first time they show him in the new season. Okay, well, I'm not gonna look at you then. I'm shy, I'm gonna look at you. And so, so it's like, there's these awkward scenes, like, you're the one that saved me? And the dude's like, yeah, I'm the one that saved you. And you're kind of looking like, why the hell, like, first of all, it ain't that many black people in the show. So you got two black people talking to each other. I'm like, okay. And they just have their scene. Then they have like another scene. And then you see what happens last week. It's like, oh, okay. Now I understand, so it's like, they were doing like what happens in daily life, which is like I didn't see you till like 4 o'clock today. And when you came up, I don't know what Greg ate for breakfast. I don't know why Greg is just now walking this way, none of that. It's just what life is, right? So there are ways, I think if you do like significant stuff like what you're talking about, like I'm gonna stop everything and put this scene in, and then there's no explanation, that's one thing. But sometimes, you can, over the course of your story, you can kind of explain and like build out and connect everything. But then we also talked about Quiet Place, the newest one. Like they've made 3 movies. We still don't know why the damn aliens came. We still don't have a clue. But no, I'm not finished, because this last one, to me, I love blackness. So you got black people, and Lupita was amazing in this movie. But so I'm already gonna be partial to blackness, but I feel like it's my favorite one out of the 3. But it also think about it, like right now we're sitting here talking, we're having a good time, whatever. Some freaking aliens start dropping out the sky. I don't care why they came. I'm trying to get to my car so I can at least shoot a couple. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like that's what real life is. So sometimes if you drop people in the middle of your story, Paul White from Black Comic Lords, like he was interviewing me and he was like, you just be dropping people in and it's like they gotta figure out what's happening in the story at the same time as the characters. I'm like, yes, I did that on purpose. And he said he loves it, but it can keep the reader intrigued, right? Because how many times have you watched this show? You might not even like this show, but it's like, man, I gotta figure out why this hates this one right here. So it's like you stick around. It can cause more intrigue, but you can't just be doing it just cause. Yeah, it's all intelligent design. Like when people say, man, you didn't even take time to develop this character in issue 2. I'm like, yeah, I know. I did it on purpose. But I did it on purpose. It's not like I'm like, ooh, I'm not gonna do. No, I did it on purpose. And when you get to issue 4 or issue 5, you're gonna understand why I did this, because it was on purpose. It takes forever to get to issue 5, but yeah, I think that's good. It's enough talking.
Okay, so here's a question for you.
How long do we have on here?
We have hours, 2 minutes.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
So what are some things that you know now, or processes, or steps in your process have been refined now through your experience, that you wish you had known when you first started? Go first if you have.
Giggle box.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna use the N-word. Don't trust a lot of niggas. I'm sorry. That goes, I'm talking about just do your research, I guess, before you start working with certain people. Because you laughing because you know what I'm talking about. Including one project going on right now. But anyway. All right, no, on the real. So we all go into comics because we love comics. We all love the stories, we love the characters, we love so much things about it. But one of the things that we gotta remember, as much as we love everything, we all come from different backgrounds. We all come from different upbringings. We all want, just like Greg and I, we all work differently in terms of how we tell our story. There's people who work different in how it comes to rights, when it comes to money, when it comes to let's get this work out, who does this, who does that, who owns this, who does that, all that other shit, right? So I feel like when that fun aspect comes out the way, oh shoot, we just did a dope ass fucking book. All right, who owns the rights? Who did what? Oh, it's under my company, so this and that. So I feel like that is an issue that a lot of people, unfortunately, get themselves caught up in, and a lot of that is because we're excited to get work out, you know, because it's I'd say making comics is both harder than you think it is, but also not. It's easier than as you think it is at the same time, right? So it's both of them, because you start to realize, oh, I can do this and that. So it really wasn't that hard to achieve, but then you start to realize, oh shit, this is actually not as easy. And sometimes because you're working with other people, you think things will be easier, but then there's people who have egos, there's people who are narcissistic, there's people who are greedy. And I'd say the best way is to do your research. If somebody reaches out to you, you could be a fan of their work, but actually you could be a fan of their work, but what is their actual ethics? What is their working process like? Can you guys get along? Because sometimes it could just be you guys are cool, but you guys don't know how to work together, right? Or sometimes it could just be this person has a history, no one really knows, it's not out in the open, but why don't you reach out to the people that they've worked with, and they can tell you, be careful, bro. Even though the work came out pretty okay, but he or she was very difficult to work with. I asked for one fix and they blew up on me. Or I paid for this amount of pages and I never got those pages. I didn't write a contract. There's all these things, and I feel like going forward, try to have a contract.
Yes.
You know,
Stepping money.
yeah, like when you're writing your comic and you say you have about 20 pages of the script of what you want to do, and you hire an artist, and the artist says, I'll only draw it if you pay me all the money, then I'll write you. Nah, we're not going to do that.
No, don't pay nobody all the money
Yeah.
up front.
We'll make an agreement. How about...
Well, especially artists. And no offense to anybody that is an artist.
Be offended.
No, but it's like, if you know, stuff happens, right? So let's say I give Victoria $5,000 to draw a comic for me, and then, you know, she gets a job offer making
Marvel.
Yeah, making all, you know what I'm saying? I'm on the back burner, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah, don't pay people their full money up front, especially artists, because art is, you know, it's a visual medium, right? She might move to Madagascar and start raising Zabuma fools or something. So, no, we can't do it. We can't do it.
So
Do not.
what I would suggest is, if that happens, when you find an artist, if you're a writer, you've written your pages out, and you found the artist that you want, he or she is perfect, then ask them, how many pages do you feel like you can do within a week? If they say 3, if they say 5, and you're cool with it, and you could actually afford 3 or 5 of their page rate, maybe they decide, I'll draw it for you for like 100, 150, whatever it is that y'all decide, it's cool. All right, so I will, if I see the pages, or I'll pay you for 3 pages that we agreed for this week. You won't get the next 3 payments of like the next 3 pages unless I see and approve these 3 pages that we agreed on, right? Sometimes some artists can do 5. You know, some people, honestly, because of their work schedule, I can only do 1 page a week. Are you cool with that? All right, cool. And that gives me more time for me to save even more money, right? And so you guys have that plan now. Every week you're getting some of your work from the pages that you want, and they're getting paid for that. You do not pay them for the next set of pages unless you get and you're happy with those sets of pages, right? Luckily, that wasn't a mistake I had in the beginning, but that is something that I know a lot of people get fucked over, especially a lot of writers, because they're so excited to get an artist. Try to figure out what their plan is. Anything you
What was the
wanna
question?
add? Mistakes that you.
Things that you wish you knew that
No,
you
I'm
know now,
joking.
or things you've improved on.
Like thinking I knew what I was doing. Like, I mean, it turned out cool, whatever. But just like the more you learn, the more you dig in, the more you realize, I didn't know what the hell I was doing, man. I just got lucky right here. Or, I mean, maybe there's talent that I have that helped me to cover up, possibly, that helped me to cover up, stuff that I didn't know. But, like, understanding that nobody all the way knows how to make great comics all the time. The best of us are going to have a flop maybe every once in a while. Like different people. I remember we did a character creation thing at DC. So we're at DC headquarters, and I'm talking about goats are in the room, and they're judging like the characters we created and everything. And I won't say names. It wasn't a bad conversation. I just don't want to drop names. But somebody I heavily admire, he's like, okay, so this villain you created, I like this villain. Like, this villain's too likable. Like, I'm supposed to not like the villain. Like, she should be on the same team as the good guy. And I was like, and then another person who I greatly, greatly admire was like, yeah, I kind of agree. It's like, this villain isn't as villainous enough. And I'm like, well, isn't that kind of what's wrong with American storytelling is we want to make our villain just be like, evil. I want to step on bunny rabbits. And like, when in real life, like evil people typically, they're doing evil stuff, but they're doing it because they're convicted, like they feel like it's the right thing to do. So let that character, kind of operate in the gray area. And then I brought up, and I'm at DC headquarters, but once you get a Greg talking, Greg is gonna talk. I'm like, so think about Killmonger in Black Panther. How many people was like, man, I'm down. I understand like what he's, we understood his pain. I ain't like some of his methods, killing black women, like that kind of stuff. I wasn't cool with that, but like you could understand why he was angry. Think about Thanos, man. I be feeling like I wake up every morning like, man, Thanos might have been right. You read a couple of posts on Facebook and it's like,
and he's very cool too. When you watch him, he's a cool guy.
He chilled out, and I'm like, man, I don't know. I kind of agree. Thanos, like,
when he got defeated, he just is like, you know what? And he just sits down and he just fades away. And I'm just like, I know this guy.
Right. I probably would be friends with Thanos, like in real life. Hey man, when you snap, can you just not include me? Like, but you get it. So it's and I mentioned that, and then they're like, wheels are turning. Like, yeah, that makes sense. I was like those because at that time those were probably two of the most recent cool villains that we had seen in superhero movies. And so I say all of that just to say that we can always learn more. We can always figure out different ways, different methods. I can read something that somebody does. Because in comics, that's another thing, right? It's like sometimes you don't know you can do something until you see somebody like, man, this book is about, potatoes chasing chicken. It could be, you can do anything in comics, So it's like sometimes just stay open-minded. And so that's what I would say is like, never think you got it all together. Always understand nobody has it all together. I'm getting ready to press print. I hit this dude up and be like, hey man, can you read this real quick? And he'd be like, bro, what's up with these commas? And I'm like, my bad. How many did you see? Too many.
Or not enough.
Or not enough, and it's like, damn, I know how to do commas and stuff. But sometimes you're so eager to get it out, you don't pinpoint, fine tune, check stuff.
Crazy.
And I'll send it to him. Like I've sent him stuff, and he went through it for free, and giving me good feedback. And he's done that with me a couple times. So it's like I don't do that with everybody because I do it with people that I know know what they're doing. But yeah, nobody knows everything. We always need extra eyes on our projects. Just stay open.
Okay. Well, I'm going to
Bless you.
stop asking questions. If anyone from the audience has questions that they want to ask, now is the perfect time to ask them. Oh wow, I didn't expect everyone to have You go ahead.
So I guess when you're sending out something for feedback, are you sending just the scripts, or sometimes are you sending the like full like pages with the artwork and lettering?
I like to send with the art. Like if it's somebody like him, I could send him the script, but I like to send it usually the complete package because like you could look at a script and be like, I don't know why in the hell he wrote this, like this right here. But when you see it with the art, it's like, oh, okay, Cool.
I think it depends on what it is. I personally don't usually like sending when I get the pages, the art, because I don't know. I feel like I don't know why exactly, unless it's somebody that I really really like admire and they might point out something. But usually I send stuff out like through the scripts, and I feel like because that's the original blueprint that I need to make sure if the script is where I need it to be, because that's my work, and we're not always our best judge of our character when it comes to our work because you think it's ready, it's perfect, and then somebody reads it and they're like, I wasn't really feeling it as much or something, or they'll pinpoint something like the lack of commas that needs to be where they need to be, but like I feel like once I get the handle of the story, I feel like I can judge my own eyes with the artwork because then I know what I want because I'm a step away from, I'm not doing the art. And I can actually critique the art because I'm looking at it in a more critical eye than I'm looking at it if it was my own script. So that's a personal thing for me.
And it also depends on who you're sending it to. Like if you have somebody who's like a real editor, then you can send it to them script form. But it's kind of what you're comfortable with. I usually feel like when I get to that point, I know what I'm doing, storytelling, all that kind of stuff is cool. So I'm using like the feedback I'm looking for is like technical stuff. Because again, like I can tell you, I can be 100% sure if you send like some of your scripts to like somebody at DC or somebody like that, they'll be like, don't do that, can't do that, can't do that. But he does it, he pulls it off, and it's so authentic, and it makes it creates. He has a style, and I know that might sound basic, but there's not a lot of people that have like a style. They just are writing, you know what I mean? But it's like I could see his stuff with even if there was no pictures and be like, yes, this dude, I know. Appreciate you.
All right.
I
There
want
were
a
like
compliment.
3 hands over here. I don't remember where they were.
There was 74 hands.
Right behind Todd.
So, like, if you have an idea, like a comic idea, right? Where do you send it to, or how do you get someone to look at it?
An idea. What do you want to do with it? So that's a loaded question. What do you want to do with it? Do you want to like a publisher to pick it up, or do you?
I mean, mainly I want it to be kind of both, like comic / anime.
Mm-hmm.
But like, how do I like take the steps? Like, when someone see it, look at it, like, what can I do to?
If you have people look at like looking at an idea, you want to have like an NDA,
Okay.
so they won't just be able to rip it and run.
Take my stuff.
Yeah. I tell people like if you want it to be a comic book, then make a comic book, because especially if you have like a unique idea or something that you feel passionate about. Because sending off your idea, like who would you say to send your idea off to?
What if you already have like 12 episodes? Like,
So do you have it as a script?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have it as a comic?
In the comic form, as far as like the way the wording is, yes, that makes sense.
But it's not like you don't have the art and everything.
No.
Okay.
So I'd say get that first.
Okay.
If you can find, not even find an artist, if you can save money,
Okay.
and I'm gonna say,
I have a lot of artists in my
She
family.
could be a baller, man.
I mean, all right. So hopefully you got a couple
Save
thousands
money.
of dollars. A couple thousands of dollars.
$1 million.
All right, so this is actually, I'm glad this question was asked, because now this is going to open up a whole different thing. So, can you guys get an estimation of how much it costs to make a comic book? Because here's what it costs a lot, right? Yeah, it costs. So, think as you're just a writer. You're writing your story. Your computer is practically free. You got all that down. Say you want your comic to be the standard 20 to 24 pages, right? My dumbass decided to do like 80 to 100 or so, or whatever, for my first comic. I just kept going. But
I'm like, God, this is expensive.
but just think about it. All right, so 24 pages. All right, think about that, right? You have your script, you find an artist, and this is just your illustrator, the guy who's going to do the pencils. Maybe they'll do inking. Usually they do now, but sometimes they don't. They give you the rate. Oh, I charge $100 a page just to draw it. Okay, cool. If you give me $30 extra, I'll do the inking. All right, that adds up. So now 100, 130 times the 20 to 24 pages. All right, you have that money saved. Then you realize, oh wait, you don't do the colors? I gotta hire a colorist? Okay, cool. How much? You find a colorist. Hey, how much money is it to do colors? About 60 a page. Okay, cool. That's a whole set now. Add on that to your costs. Oh shoot, how are they gonna read my comics? The words aren't there. You gotta hire. Now you gotta hire a letterer, a professional letterer. So here's the thing. A lot of people who start comics, they like to skim on the letters because they think, oh, he's just putting the balloons and the bubbles in. Nah, that's a whole art craft because an editor can pick up your comic. Once they see how fucked up the letters is, they're just gonna put that shit down. It doesn't matter how good the writing is, it doesn't matter how good the art is. If the letters suck, they're gonna put it down because it's amateur, it's unprofessional. So you gotta find a professional letterer now who knows the little details that we miss because they're doing a great job. But if we catch the letters being weird, then you realize it may not be a great lettering. So they might charge, they're usually cheaper. Sometimes it's
15, 25.
15, 25, even 30. But that also adds on to everything.
And that's per page.
That's per page. So now you're like, oh shoot, my comic is done and this and that. But then you're like, oh, but you want it in people's hands, right? You don't want it on the screen. So now you got to find out.
Pay to print.
Now you got to pay to print. But before you even pay for the printing, usually the letterer does this. Now they're the ones who design and put the whole thing together. That's another cost. And then
to format it.
Format it, to get everything.
I also worked I had a letterer. He's a fantastic letterer. I had him do the cover, dress the cover. Yeah. He's not really that good at dressing covers. So I got to find a graphic designer who can dress the cover, right? So
it's a whole thing. And then think about sometimes your artist is not a good cover artist. You might want to get a cover artist or somebody who can capture what you want. You got to pay for your logos, whether it's your company logo or the title of your comic and all that other stuff. And then once you get all that done, now you got to pay for the printing, right? So now trying to find a printer who could actually afford to do many, 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 many copies, you know? And then after that, you think you're cool. Oh no, shipping costs on top of that. So it never freaking ends. But it's one of those things where you have to consider when it comes to making a comic. So this is why you see us all at the table really hustling, because we need to buy my comic. Please, yes, please. We're broke. Trying to make that one comic. $8. Right? So going forward, thank you. I want to say, try to save as much as you can, even though you might be ripping out a braid or two. But when it's done, you're so freaking proud of it that you actually accomplished this. And you accomplished something that many people say they want to do, but they've never done before, right? So once you actually have that material down, then maybe you can start seeing, hey, what do you think about this idea? you know. And some people, what they do is they use that as like a pitch, you know. Like I actually want to turn this into an anime, but this is the idea that I have. This is a style that close to what I'm looking for. This is a story. These are the characters. You could try to pitch it to an editor or producer, whatever it is. But once you show that you have this material, that's way better than just saying I have this idea that I want to pitch to you. You actually have the pitch in your hands.
And
Sorry
you
to go through that whole
a-
spiel.
No,
but-
you're
No,
good.
that was very valuable. You now you have a proof of concept, and sometimes like because somebody who's been through the pitch thing, you could tell, you know, you could pitch, you could come up with an elaborate 20-page pitch and give it to these people, and they can be like, oh, I don't know if I have a market for this. You know, like my most recent children's book, like I had a guy who was trying to get it into like this educational system, and there's a lady that was over it. She looks at it and she's like, I don't know if this works for us. And then the black people come in, and they're like flipping out, like, oh, this works for us. And so now she's called, you know, so it's like you pitch to the wrong person, they might not see, but if you have like an entire book, they see that you're dedicated, that you believe enough, that you invested your time, your money, your art, your skill, you know what I mean? So it can go a lot farther. And at the same time, you might be able to sell it and make a little bit of money to recoup the $9 million that it cost
Ooh,
you to make.
not 9 million.
Sure you don't. I already. She already a baller. I got save. I ain't saving.
All right, I think we can get 2 more questions in. Him and then him. Okay. So guy in the back.
We'll see how
I think
quickly
that's
we can
all.
answer your questions. What's the question?
The Little Rock Farm, you talk about it. What is that?
So it's
Greatness. It's amazing. And I'm not saying that because he's next to me. It's a really great book.
It's a 80s noir detective story. It takes place in Little Rock, Arkansas, obviously. You have a detective that's new to like the precinct, and he feels kind of like a diversity hire, so he don't trust the white cops. He don't really know the community that well, even though he's from there. So there's a lot going on. I've leaned on some stuff that was actually happening in Arkansas. A lot of people don't know Bill Clinton was governor. While he was governor, his brother was arrested for drug trafficking. There's a lot of stuff. Sorry. There's a lot of stuff cracking. They were bringing. Basically, what was happening, you guys familiar with like the CIA Contra drug scandal? All right, so what they were doing in California, allowing the Contras to fund their war using cocaine and guns, selling them to the black communities. They were also running guns and drugs into Arkansas that were being distributed up to Chicago, northern Louisiana. So I'm pulling on some of that stuff. It takes place in the 80s. I got Jerry curls in the book. Quinn McGowan. Quinn McGowan is the artist, and he's from Memphis. His father was a detective, so it was like when I reached out to him, I knew he was from Memphis, but I didn't know any of the other stuff. So he's passionate. He's like, yeah, nah, man, detective wouldn't stand like that. He would be standing like this, and so he's really digging in. So we created this really authentic book. There's a scene where our lead character is watching TV, and you can see on the screen a familiar thing if you grew up in the 80s and maybe early 90s. The commercial where they were all the music, and the dude is like, hey man, let me get your, and he's like, no, my brother, you got to buy your own. Like we got that in the book, you know what I mean? So it's really cool because it was a great time for me. And there's also part of the story is some stuff that I actually lived through as a kid in Louisiana. So I got them at the table. I sold a good amount of them today, but I still have some for tomorrow if anybody's interested.
FYI, their table D5,
5
D6,
minutes.
and their table A106.
As soon
They're
as you
not
walk
labeled,
into the
you're
main room, you turn. You have to go left, and you can't help but see us. It's the Tuskegee Airs table. We got like 4 tables. It's why are you making these faces?
There is a map on the app. If you look at the guide, there is a map, and the map actually makes sense.
So my man held up the 5-minute sign.
Go ahead.
So,
Okay.
Durham.
Well, what are some of the biggest ways you guys have improved this writing?
Some of the biggest ways you
Yeah.
can improve this, right?
I think, like for me, I've gotten better with not writing so many words.
Yes. yes, absolutely.
Ooh.
No, I'm talking about myself.
Yeah,
too.
no, because it's like in the beginning, it's like, man, I gotta get all this thought out. I kind of reverted back to when I like wrote music and poetry and stuff like that, where it's like you're confined to a certain amount of space, and so I go into it that way now, instead of saying, man, my character needs to explain every single thing that they feel right this second, and everybody wants to read it, and nobody's gonna go to sleep. You know what I mean? So it's like it's got to be punchy, you know, like get in and get out. But I also studied, I studied Gail Simone. I think she's like God tier writer. Rodney Barnes, David Walker might be my favorite because he makes it look so organic and it looks simple. But if you're a writer, you know, like that story he did in Orange is the New Black. Yeah, man, I read that. I love your story in that book as well. But when I read his, I just closed it up. And people are like, man, I love your story. I'm like, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You need to read this. But yeah, less words, more, you know, like, bang, haymakers instead of, you know, lots of jabs.
Rodney Barnes is a beast.
I think I call him the GOAT now. There's people I can study, and I'm like, I can do this, I can do that, I can do this. I read Rodney stuff, I'm like, I can't. I don't even know where it's coming from. Whenever I'm around him, I just be looking like, you ain't real, dog. I'm waiting for, let me see you blink. He's a beast.
I think for me, my improvement is as much as I love volume 1 of my book, there's so many things I cringe. And the fact that a lot of people, I'm still like, oh, people still get excited. I still get great reviews about it when they come out. But one of my favorite things is when people tell me, dog, the latest one was like the best of the whole thing. And that makes me feel good because I'm just like, I feel like I'm actually improving.
It's just,
when they feel like your latest thing is way better. And sometimes I've had people read some of my other works that's not as Nana. And they're like, they feel like they don't want to tell me because it's Nana's like my baby, you know? But then they're like, this book that you wrote for this other person, that's my favorite thing that you've written. They're like afraid to tell me. But to me, I'm like, thank you. Because I feel like I don't want to be a one-trick pony. I want my latest shit to be better than my previous stuff, even if it's not as Nana. It makes me feel good that I'm improving. And a lot of that just comes from practicing. And also, like, I reread my stuff a lot because I start to pick up a lot of things where I'm like, why the hell did I decide to do that? And now I know not to do that. If I were to tell the story a little differently, in what ways would I tell that differently? And sometimes reading other people's works, like how he reads a lot of other folks and people's how-to books of how to write, or like them writing their own stories, you start to pick up on little tactics where you're just like, I did something completely different, and I can see why that way is a little better, and how can I improve myself as a writer doing that? And so you have to be open-minded to improve. A lot of people get stuck on, my shit is this, it's that, it's that, it's that, it's cool. But you're not gonna get better unless you actually read from people out there and try to pick up on their own sort of things that makes you excited as a reader. How can I incorporate that into my own life?
Yeah, I always say if you read like we just reprinted the book that we created 23 years ago. I think we talked about it. And I was like, I'm like, if I look at that and I'm like, oh, this is as dope as Little Rock Files, then that means I haven't grown at all, and that I've just been stuck in that same place, and I probably need to go get a job or something. Like, it's just like.
All right. Firstly, we are out of time, but feel free to find them at their tables tomorrow if you're here, and definitely ask some questions if you're interested. And thank you all for coming.